Welcome to my final project for MS 548. Going to give a nice description of the program and do a demonstration of the program, and hopefully everything is explained properly and everyone understands exactly how this program works. Now, what I wanted to do was create a neural network machine learning program. So the libraries I chose to install were TensorFlow, scikit-learn, and Vader. Chose TensorFlow because it'll help build and train the neural network and is great with larger text data like the kind that I'm going to be using. I chose to use a database, a movie database, IMDB, to import data from, and to perform logical regression and text vectorization. I chose scikit-learn. This allows me to split the data arrays into two subsets, one for training and then the other for testing. It will also allow access to logistic regression algorithms. The final library I utilized was the Vader NLTK, which is a sentiment analysis tool and is very helpful at looking at social media language, such as slang in our English language. So to begin the program, we imported several libraries, and to get TensorFlow to work correctly, we imported these following lines using Keras, and we are getting through that and importing with the Keras datasets IMDB for our data. And we are using tkinter for a GUI setup that will allow the user to then give their own review and have the model that was trained from the data imported from IMDB to give the user a different result based on the sentiment of their movie review. As we move on, we are going to use NumPy to compute numerical data such as arrays and other high-level math functions which operate in these data structures. We're going to be using pandas for data manipulation and analysis. The scikit-learn library for logistic regression and text vectorization, as mentioned before. And also down here, we are going to be using the NLTK library for the sentiment analysis. So without further ado, let's launch this program and see what we get and how it works. It does take a minute to compile all the data we're collecting. And after it computes, we get this nice GUI that I will enlarge in a moment, but I do want to go over in the terminal what we actually got for some output. And for every epoch or event, we can see a little bit of data and see what was brought in by values. The higher the accuracy values, obviously, the better the result will be. And as we look down at our neural network accuracy, we received a score of 85%, which is beyond exceptional and will work just fine for the model we're working with right now. So we did acquire quite a bit of data. The more data, the more effective it is. The less data, the less effective it is. So we acquired enough data and we achieved an 85% score. Next, we are looking at the Vader sentiment scores for the first review, and it looks like compound of different reviews. Compound meaning mixed of negative, neutral, and positive. So it basically was determining that all the data we imported had mostly a rounded out aspect in sentiment. As well, for the specific text, the compound was overwhelmingly the majority. And we see that the sentiment of the specific text resulted in a positive score, further indicating that our data we grabbed from IMDB when it was imported and reviewed gave a sentiment analysis in the positive direction. Now with our GUI that we have, if we blow this up, we have the opportunity to use the data we imported and trained our model on. And we can simply say something like, I really enjoyed this movie and would recommend to a friend. And if we analyze the sentiment of our own review, we get a sentiment of positive. So me really enjoying this movie and recommending based on the data we trained, the sentiment analysis results in positive with a nice little emoji of a smiley face. Let's say we put in something negative. Let's say I really hated this movie and would not recommend it. If we analyze our sentiment, now our sentiment is negative since we said we hated the movie and would not recommend it. And if we did trial and error, we could eventually possibly find a neutral answer. That gets to be a little bit more difficult because it is based on the training of the data we already performed, and it's much easier to sway with English, getting a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. Getting a neutral sentiment can take a little bit of playing around, but ultimately it could be achieved. And it has been trained based on all the information we did import and train our model on from IMDB.